The wilderness hides things we can't explain, shadows that loom too large, sounds that chill the soul. I used to dismiss Bigfoot as a myth, a story for campfires and late-night radio, but after what I've witnessed, the truth feels heavier than fear itself. These are my encounters, etched into my mind from the wilds of America, where something ancient watches from the dark. Story 1, The Shadow in the Creek. Location, inspired by BFRO Report 79083, Poplar Bluff, Missouri. It was a sweltering August afternoon in 2025, and I was alone in my truck, rumbling down County Road 448 outside Poplar Bluff, Missouri. The heat shimmered off the asphalt, and the cicadas screamed in the trees. I'd been checking my trail cams along the creek on my property, a ritual I'd kept up for years to track deer. My phone pinged with a notification from one of the cellular cams. A motion alert. I pulled over, dust swirling around my tires, and opened the app. The image loaded slowly, pixel by pixel, until I saw it. A hulking, dark figure standing in the middle of the creek, its silhouette blurred but unmistakably massive. My heart skipped. "What the hell is that?" I muttered, squinting at the screen. I showed the image to my wife over lunch, but she couldn't make it out, just said it looked big. I tried the live view on the camera, but whatever it was had vanished in the 10 seconds it took to load. After work, I grabbed my brother, Mark, and we hiked down to the creek, the air thick with humidity and the smell of damp earth. The gravel bed crunched under our boots, but we found no footprints. No signs of anything. The creek was shallow, maybe knee-deep, with fist-sized rocks lining the bottom. "Maybe it was a bear," Mark said, but his voice lacked conviction. Bears don't stand upright like that, and we both knew it. That night, I couldn't sleep. The image haunted me, those broad shoulders, the way it seemed to stare right at the camera. I set up 2 more cams along the creek, their infrared lenses glowing faintly in the dark. At 3:17 a.m., my phone pinged again. I fumbled for it, my hands shaking as I opened the app. The new image showed the same figure, closer now, its head tilted as if studying the camera. Its eyes reflected a dull, amber glow, and its fur, matted and black, seemed to absorb the moonlight. I bolted upright, my pulse hammering. The live view showed nothing but the empty creek, but I swear I heard a low, guttural moan from outside my window carried on the humid night air. The next morning I went back to the creek alone. The air felt heavier, like the forest was holding its breath. One of the cams was gone, its strap torn and dangling from a sapling. On the gravel bank, I found a single massive print, human-like, but easily 18 inches long, pressed deep into the mud where the gravel gave way to softer earth. My stomach churned. I didn't tell Mark. I didn't tell anyone. But that night, as I lay in bed, the moans came again, closer this time, followed by the sharp crack of a branch snapping in the woods. I haven't gone back to the creek since, but sometimes when the wind is still, I hear it, a low, rumbling call that makes my blood run cold. Story 2, The Eyes in the Forest. Location, inspired by BFRO Report 78820, Ashland County, Wisconsin. It was late October 2023, and I was driving with my sister Emily down County Road M in Wisconsin's Chequamegon-Nicolet National Forest. The leaves had turned blood red, and the air was crisp, the kind of fall morning that makes you feel alive. We were headed to Clam Lake, about 3 miles away, when I spotted something on the hill ahead, a tall, dark figure standing on the shoulder of the road. "Look at that," I said, nudging Emily. "What's someone doing out here?" She glanced up from her phone, frowned, and went back to scrolling. As we got closer, the figure started crossing the road, moving with a strange, fluid stride. It was tall, taller than any man I'd ever seen, and covered in black hair that shimmered in the sunlight. "That's no person," I whispered, my hands tightening on the steering wheel. It reached the other side of the road and slipped into the woods, but not before turning its head. Its face, I'll never forget it, was almost human, but wrong, with deep-set eyes that seemed to burn into me. We locked gazes for a split second, and my chest tightened like someone had squeezed my lungs. "Emily, look!" I shouted, but she glanced the wrong way, out the passenger window. "What?" she snapped, annoyed. I checked my rearview mirror. A car was coming up fast behind us. I had to speed up or risk getting rear-ended. When I looked back to the woods, the figure was gone, swallowed by the dense pines. "It was a Bigfoot," I said, my voice shaking. Emily rolled her eyes. "You're seeing things, Dwayne." That night, I couldn't shake the image of those eyes. I drove back to the spot alone at dusk, the forest now cloaked in shadow. I parked and stepped out, my flashlight cutting through the gloom. The air was still, but the hairs on my neck stood up. Then I heard it, a deep, resonant whoop, echoing through the trees, followed by the snap of twigs. I froze, my beam trembling as it swept the woods. Something moved, just beyond the light. A massive shape, darker than the darkness itself, weaving between the trunks. Another whoop, closer now, vibrated in my chest. I stumbled back to the truck, locked the doors, and peeled out. In my rearview mirror, I swear I saw those eyes again, glowing faintly in the fading light, watching me from the edge of the forest. Story 3: The River Walker. It was August 4th, 2025, and I was driving north on Highway 4 from Tuttle, Oklahoma toward Mustang, the sun just climbing over the horizon. I always glanced at the Canadian River when I crossed the bridge. It's a habit, looking for herons or deer wading in the shallows. But that morning, at 8:15 a.m., I saw something else. A massive black figure was slogging through the river, about 100 yards east of the bridge. It was walking upright, its arms swinging like pendulums, the water barely reaching its knees. My breath caught. It was no bear, no man. Too big, too broad, too wrong. I slowed the car, my eyes glued to the figure. It was completely black, like a shadow given form, and it moved with purpose, heading toward the north bank. The wake trailed behind it, rippling in the morning light. I fumbled for my phone to take a picture, but by the time I got it out, I was over the bridge. I made a quick U-turn at the next intersection and sped back, my heart pounding. When I reached the bridge again, the figure was gone, the river calm as if nothing had happened. I pulled over and got out, my boots crunching on the gravel shoulder. The air was warm, but a chill ran through me. I scanned the riverbank, hoping to see tracks or some sign of what I'd seen. Nothing. The sand was too loose, the water too quick to hold prints. But then I heard it. A low, guttural growl, like a dog, but deeper, coming from the thick brush on the north side. I backed away, my hand on the knife at my belt, though I knew it'd be useless against something that size. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept seeing that figure in my mind, its massive bulk cutting through the water. Around midnight, I heard a sound outside my house, a heavy thump, like something big stepping on the porch. I grabbed my flashlight and peered through the window, but the beam caught only shadows. Then came a knock, slow and deliberate, on the wooden siding. My blood froze. I didn't open the door. I didn't move. The knocking stopped, but for the rest of the night, I felt it. Something watching, waiting, just beyond the walls, its presence as heavy as the Oklahoma heat. In Noah, Story 4, The Whisper in the Fog. Location, inspired by BFRO Report 78900, Deschutes National Forest, Oregon. It was early September 2025, and I was backpacking alone in Oregon's Deschutes National Forest, chasing solitude in the high desert pines. The fog rolled in thick that morning, cloaking the trail in a gray haze that muffled every sound. I'd set up camp near Crane Prairie Reservoir, my tent tucked against a stand of ponderosas. Around 2 a.m., I woke to a strange noise, a low, breathy whisper like someone muttering just outside the tent. My skin prickled. I held my breath, straining to listen. The sound stopped, but the air felt heavy, like something was pressing down on the world. I unzipped the tent flap, my flashlight cutting through the fog. The beam barely reached 10 feet before dissolving into the mist. I stepped out, my boots sinking into the damp earth, and scanned the campsite. Nothing. Then, a sharp crack, like a branch snapping under weight, echoed from the trees. I swung the light toward the sound, catching a glimpse of movement, a massive, upright shape, darker than the fog, slipping between the pines. My heart hammered. "Who's there?" I called, my voice shaking. No answer, just the faint crunch of pine needles under something heavy. The next morning, the fog had lifted, but the forest felt wrong. I found tracks near my tent, huge, human-like prints, at least 16 inches long, pressed deep into the soil. They led toward the reservoir and vanished at the water's edge. My stomach twisted as I packed up camp, my eyes darting to every shadow. That night, back home, I couldn't sleep. Around midnight, I heard it again, that same breathy whisper now coming from the woods behind my house. I locked the doors and kept the lights on, but the sound lingered, low and deliberate, like it was calling my name. I haven't gone back to Deschutes since, but sometimes in the quiet I swear I hear it still. Story 5. The Scream on the Ridge. I was hunting deer in Tennessee's Cherokee National Forest in November 2024, hiking along a ridge near the Hiwassee River. The air was crisp, the leaves crunching under my boots as I moved through the pre-dawn dark. I'd set up in a tree stand, my rifle resting across my lap, waiting for first light. Just as the sky began to gray, a scream tore through the forest, a piercing, guttural wail that wasn't human, wasn't animal. My blood ran cold. It sounded close, maybe 100 yards down the ridge. I gripped my rifle, my breath shallow, and scanned the trees below. The scream came again, louder, followed by the crash of something heavy moving through the underbrush. I caught a glimpse of it through my binoculars. A massive figure, easily 8 feet tall, covered in reddish-brown hair, striding across a clearing. Its arms were long, swinging like a gorilla's, and its head turned, as if sensing me. I froze, my heart pounding so hard, I thought it'd give me away. The thing stopped, sniffed the air, then let out another scream that rattled my bones. I didn't move, didn't breathe, until it lumbered into the trees and vanished. When I finally climbed down, my legs were shaking. I found tracks in the soft dirt, wide, five-toed prints that dwarfed my size 11 boots. They trailed along the ridge, then veered into a ravine. I didn't follow. Back at my truck, I called my buddy Tom, a forest ranger, but he laughed it off, saying I'd probably seen a bear. That night, camped by the river, I woke to rocks clattering against my tent, followed by that same unearthly scream, now closer. I grabbed my rifle and sat up until dawn, listening as the forest seemed to watch me. I don't hunt on that ridge anymore, but the sound of that scream still haunts my dreams. Story 6. The Watcher in the Rain. Location: inspired by BFRO Report 7876, Olympic National Forest, Washington. It was a rainy October evening in 2024, and I was driving a logging road in Washington's Olympic National Forest, my truck's wipers slapping against the downpour. I was heading to a cabin near the Quinault River to meet some friends for a fishing weekend. The road was muddy, winding through dense firs, and my headlights barely cut through the rain. Around 9 p.m., I rounded a bend and slammed on the brakes. There, in the middle of the road, stood a massive figure. Tall, broad, and covered in wet, matted fur the color of coal. Its eyes caught my headlights, glowing like twin embers, and it stared right at me. I sat there, engine idling, too stunned to move. It was human-like, but wrong, too big, too heavy, with arms that hung almost to its knees. After what felt like forever, it turned and stepped into the forest, the trees swallowing it whole. I found where it had stepped off the road, a patch of mud with a single massive footprint, deep and wide, the toes splayed like a man's but monstrous. When I got to the cabin, I told my friends, but they just teased me, saying I'd seen a bear in the rain. We laughed it off, but I couldn't shake the image of those eyes. That night, as the rain pounded the roof, I heard something outside. A low, rumbling growl, followed by heavy footsteps circling the cabin. So through the window, I saw it again, those glowing eyes watching from the tree line, unblinking in the storm. But even now, when it rains, I feel those eyes on me, waiting in the dark. These encounters haunt me still, lurking in the quiet moments when the world feels too still. Whatever I saw, Bigfoot, monster, or something older, knows the woods better than we ever will. If you wander deep enough, listen for the whispers, the screams, the eyes in the dark. But be warned, once you see it, you'll never feel alone again.
Tales from the woods and beyond the hidden basement. Deep in the mountains, your screams might travel for miles, but that doesn't mean anyone will hear them. This story, titled The Hidden Basement in the Cabin, comes from a viewer called Nash99, and it left me both unnerved and deeply curious. It involves a horrifying discovery, but what lingers is the sense of something larger at play, something hidden, possibly protected by people in high places. Could it be a government cover-up? Or something worse? Just figuring out whether or not I should tell this story was hard. Part of me wants to forget it ever happened. Another part knows I have to say it out loud, if only as a warning.
It all happened in 2021, up in the Colorado Rockies near Idaho Springs. After that experience, I still can't drive through that area without breaking into a cold sweat. Call me Nash. It's not my real name, but it's the nickname my friends have used since middle school. I was 24 at the time, working part-time at a tire shop in Georgetown while trying to finish an online business degree that I've still never completed. But my real passion was what people online call urban exploration. Only out here, it's not really urban. It's rural exploration, or rurex, as we called it. I had a good camera setup, Canon 5D Mark III, and a side gig selling high-res photos of abandoned places to stock agencies and video game designers. I wasn't in it for money or YouTube fame. I was chasing something deeper, an escape maybe. I started exploring abandoned places when I was 16. After my parents' sudden and unexplained divorce, I needed something to make sense of the chaos. My family had always seemed so solid. Then, one day, my dad was gone, and no one would tell us why. That pain never left. It sat in me like a splinter. At night, I'd wander the neighborhood, eventually finding my way to an old mining office left behind from the 1960s. I'd sneak in, sit in an old chair, and smoke cigarettes I'd stolen from my mom. Sometimes I cried, sometimes I screamed into the mountain silence. Over time, the exploration became more structured. Flashlights turned into headlamps. I started carrying gloves, dust masks, and a crowbar. I learned how to read property records and old USGS maps to locate hidden or long-forgotten sites. Eventually, I got my friend Janum into it too. He'd always been there for me. He threw me a birthday party when my dad forgot, got me a job when I was unemployed. He wasn't just along for the ride. He dove headfirst into the research, obsessing over old hunting lodges, mining camps, even sanitariums. And then we found that cabin. Janum spotted it on an old Forest Service map, a huge lodge between Idaho Springs and Mount Evans, abandoned since the 70s after a fire damaged part of the roof. The place was massive, 8,000 square feet with multiple outbuildings. We drove up on a cold, moonlit Saturday night, parked behind some trees, hiked in. The place was half rotted, but the carvings on the front door were still intact. Bears, elk, mountains. You could tell someone had once cared. It was in a utility room. The padlock had already been cut. Beneath was a reinforced shaft leading down into what looked like an old cave or bunker. 15 feet down, it opened into a tunnel, reinforced with concrete arches.
"This isn't a mine," Janum whispered, his fingers brushing the smooth walls. "Someone built this."
Then we heard her. Then we heard someone descending the ladder.
"Well," he said, "this is unfortunate."
Janum threw a light at him and we ran. We made it to the Forerunner and tore down the mountain road, gasping, heart pounding. I called the cops once we got service. They said they'd meet us at the forestry road, but when they arrived, the trap door had been sealed with a new padlock. They promised to come back with a team. They never did. Later, we received visits, notes, a man outside our apartment giving us the same mocking thumbs up the hooded man had given me. Then the man came into my apartment at night. He stood in the shadows of my bedroom, whispering how easy it would be to make me vanish. He had my name, my address. I escaped out the window and ran for help. Only then did the police take me seriously. Weeks later, the cabin burned to the ground. No evidence remained. Nothing. But I remember. I remember her eyes, vacant, broken. And I remember the sound of his voice, telling me how easy it would be.
White Thing submitted by Bird. I live in the Alabama woods, and while I love it out here, I've seen things I can't explain. My brother and I each have a big Great Dane, and every few nights they go nuts, barking, chasing into the woods. But when I run outside, they're already on the porch, staring into the forest like something's watching. During whitetail season, my dad asked me to take my young cousin hunting. I couldn't say no. We hiked to an old hunting house overlooking a clearing and a creek. We didn't see any deer, but I saw a flash of white moving quickly through the underbrush, about 4 feet off the ground. I assumed it was a deer tail, but it didn't move like one. Then we heard it. Something walking along the other side of the creek, stopping and starting in weird, uneven bursts. It stayed out there for 45 minutes, circling. I convinced myself it was nothing. Night fell. We left. But my cousin forgot his camo bag. I told him I'd get it. I drove the four-wheeler down, grabbed the bag, and then saw it. A small white figure darting just out of my headlight's reach. I took off, but I heard it, splashing through the creek behind me at an impossible speed. In my taillights I saw it. A pale humanoid with black hair hanging down its body, running on all fours. I made it home, knife in hand. It was gone. But my cousin had seen it too, from the window. We haven't seen it since, but the dogs still bark at the woods, and if that thing ever threatens my family again, I'll be ready. During my 8th grade summer, I walked through the woods at night to visit my then-girlfriend. One night I heard movement in the trees. Then I heard her voice calling my name, but something was off. It was seductive, unnatural. Then I saw it. A pale humanoid crouched in the brush. When it stood, it was massive, taller than me, and I'm 6 feet tall. I ran. I screamed for her to open the door. She did. I crashed inside and locked it. She was terrified, said it had been right behind me. We never went into those woods again. Last summer, I went night fishing near a friend's property. I brought my 9-month-old German Shepherd Rottweiler mix, Mauser. The area was too quiet, no bugs, no frogs, nothing. Mauser refused to leave the truck. Then the smell hit, sulfur and rot. I heard heavy steps in the brush, not a deer, not human. Then I saw it, a rotting antlered figure that looked like a deer-man hybrid stitched from corpses. I bolted. As I drove away, I heard tapping on the truck window. Mouser snarled. The bed of the truck dipped like something landed in it. When I got to my friends, I found claw marks in the bed, 10 inches deep. I still hunt and fish, but never after dark, and sometimes I still hear that tapping. Stay safe out there. Whether you explore the forgotten places of the world or just live near the woods, there are things out there. Some of them watch, some of them wait, and some of them remember you.
Welcome to Curious Conundrums for some strange Bigfoot case files. In my early 20s, I was in peak shape from working construction on weekends. I spent most of my free time hiking and biking, and I genuinely believed there wasn't much I couldn't handle. Being young and physically strong can trick you into thinking you're untouchable. At the time, I was convinced nothing out there could truly rattle me. I was living in Flagstaff, Arizona, and had driven out near Sunset Crater in the Coconino National Forest. I'm careful about naming the exact location, because I don't want curious thrill seekers wandering into something they don't understand. Confidence in the wilderness can turn into overconfidence fast, and not everyone who assumes they're in control makes it back. I arrived late that night, rolled out my sleeping bag on the open forest floor, and fell asleep under the pines. That area is mostly open woodland, tall pine trees spaced wide apart with natural grass beneath them, almost like a massive park. It always felt peaceful to me. When I woke up, the sun was already high. I checked my watch. It was 10 in the morning, later than I'd ever slept outdoors. Still groggy, I found a volcanic rock to sit on while I drank my coffee and tried to shake off the haze. Everything around me seemed calm and quiet. Being out there usually made the rest of the world feel distant and unimportant. I walked back to my car, grabbed a turkey sandwich and a soda I'd picked up the night before, and wandered off to eat. Lost in thought, I didn't pay attention to where I was going. It's surprising I didn't get turned around, but the San Francisco peaks are reliable landmarks, and I knew the area from previous hikes. I eventually came to a small clearing and sat on another rock in the sun. After eating, I stretched out in the tall grass and drifted off again. I don't know how long I slept, but when I woke up, something felt wrong. A powerful sensation washed over me, the unmistakable feeling that I was being watched. I stayed still, trying to understand why I suddenly felt nervous when nothing in the environment had visibly changed. Slowly, I lifted my head and stood up. That's when I noticed something in a pine tree across the clearing. At first, I questioned whether I was really seeing anything at all. The shape blended in with the branches, but it looked like a figure standing on a thick limb, leaning against the trunk, almost hiding, almost observing. Its size was strange. Not large, not small. Maybe the height of a short adult man. I froze. I turned my head slightly away, watching it from the corner of my eye. It didn't move. I tried convincing myself it was just a shadow, but shadows don't trigger instinctive fear like that. I remember thinking about how animals watch from trees in some parts of the world, monkeys, for example, but this wasn't anything familiar. Eventually, I decided I needed to head back to my car. The sun was already lowering, and I estimated the walk would take about an hour. I regretted wandering so far without paying attention. As I walked, I occasionally turned to glance at the tree. Nothing changed. I kept telling myself it was stress, dehydration, imagination. But the feeling of being followed crept back in. Several times I turned quickly, expecting to catch movement. I never did. This was the first time I had ever felt afraid in the forest during daylight, and that confusion made it worse. When I reached my car, I still felt shaken. I don't know why I didn't just leave. My instincts were telling me to go, but I rationalized it away. I hadn't clearly seen anything, so there was no real threat, or so I told myself. Instead of driving off, I started gathering firewood. By dusk, the anxiety had faded. I ate canned pulled pork and beans on a bun and leaned against the same rock from earlier. I grabbed my old Gibson guitar, my father's, and played softly as the stars appeared. The night felt calm again, peaceful even. At some point, I drifted off. A horrible screech snapped me awake. At first, I thought it was part of a dream. Then it came again, from the trees across from me. It wasn't just a scream. It was something that started as a screech and blended into a howl, the kind of sound that hits you in your bones. I ran to my car, slammed the door, and locked it. I should have left immediately, but I didn't. My guitar was still by the rock. It had belonged to my father, and he had passed away. In that moment, it felt impossible to leave it behind, even though no object is worth your life. I sat there in the dark, heart pounding, trying to reason with myself. Finally, I unlocked the door, planning to move fast. That's when I saw it. About 10 feet away, in a tree branch barely visible in the darkness, a shadowed shape stood swaying slightly in the wind, watching, waiting. I knew instantly that if I stepped out casually, it would come at me. I slammed the door shut and locked it again. I still couldn't see it clearly, just an outline, but it had climbed, and it had screamed, and nothing about it felt normal. The wind picked up suddenly, bending the tree hard. I wondered if it could even hold its position much longer. Then I had a reckless idea. Start the engine, blast the lights, lay on the horn, sprint out, grab the guitar, back in the car. I did it in one motion. Horn blaring, lights flashing. I ran to the rock, snatched the guitar, sprinted back, and dove inside. For a split second, I felt triumphant. Then something heavy slammed onto the roof of my car. It had jumped. I cursed myself for not parking facing outward. I had to maneuver awkwardly to turn toward the dirt road, while something scraped across the metal roof, claws dragging, trying to dig in. When I finally straightened onto the track, the weight shifted. It slid down over the windshield and onto the hood, and that's when I saw it clearly. Long brown hair with silver-tipped strands, almost like a gorilla but not quite. A dome-shaped head, dark, intelligent eyes, black and focused with intent. It wasn't enormous, but it was powerful, hostile, like it wanted inside. It resembled descriptions people give of Bigfoot, but smaller, almost juvenile, or malformed. It pounded on the windshield while the car was moving, showing no fear for its own safety. I slammed the brakes and jerked the wheel. The storm winds gusted hard and its weight shifted. It rolled off the hood. I accelerated and didn't stop until I reached town. I pulled into a diner just to be around people. I ordered food but couldn't eat it. My hands shook uncontrollably. The shock lasted weeks. The nightmares lasted longer. The worst part wasn't the terror during the encounter. It was how it changed my understanding of the world. I eventually returned to normal life, but I have never again felt completely at ease in the wilderness. Bigfoot. At the campground. I was 15 in the summer of 2002 when my best friend and I went camping for the weekend. We lived in Vancouver, British Columbia, and drove east near Grand Forks for the trip. After setting up camp just after sunset, we decided to explore the campground with flashlights. While walking down a dirt trail, we heard heavy breathing from the right side of the path. We assumed it was a bear. We backed up and shined our lights into the trees. What we saw wasn't a bear. The creature had been crouched. When our lights hit it, it rose slowly onto 2 legs and kept rising. When fully upright, it stood around 8 feet tall, covered in dark brown hair, human-shaped, broad shoulders, watching us. After several long seconds, it turned and ran into the forest. We went straight back to camp and told my parents. They didn't believe us. We didn't sleep at all that night. Hairy men in Texas. I later worked as a geologist, mostly out west, but one of the earliest stories that stayed with me came from my grandmother, Aunt Bessie. Around 1916, long before Bigfoot sightings were widely discussed, her family in East Texas encountered something strange near Sulphur Bottom, not far from the Boggy Creek region. One bright moonlit night, riding home in a wagon, their mule stopped at the gate and refused to move. Then they heard a high-pitched howl from across the field. In the moonlight, something stepped out of the woods. It stood upright, tall, covered in dark hair, waving its arms and shrieking. When it started walking toward them, her father fired his rifle. The creature turned and ran back into the trees. The dogs that night hid under the porch without making a sound. Searches over the next few days found nothing, but stories of hairy, man-like creatures in those woods long predated the word Bigfoot. Massacre at the Alameda Mine. In 1922, 5 miners left the Alameda Mine along the Rogue River to prospect on their own. Only one returned. He claimed they were attacked by 2 massive, hairy creatures shaped like men but built like beasts. A search party recovered 2 bodies. One was missing. Oversized prints were reportedly found. The official cause was listed as an unknown wild animal. Workers were warned not to talk. The survivor never told the story again. Red eyes on the roadside. In 2004, driving rural back roads in Lorain County, Ohio at 3 a.m., I crested a hill and saw a massive dark figure by the roadside. The first thing I noticed were red gleaming eyes. When my headlights hit it, it squinted. It lifted one arm and ran across a freshly tilled field, far faster than seemed possible. Moments later, I saw red eyes again at the top of the hill. The speed didn't make sense. I later measured a nearby bush at 5 feet tall. The creature's head had been at least 2 feet above it. I still slow down when I drive past that road. Dogman encounter. Around 2008 or 2009 in Fannin County, Georgia, I struck something in the road late at night. We ran completely over it. When I turned the truck around to look, I saw a black creature unlike anything I could identify. Roughly the size of a young bear. Twisted neck, blue glassy eyes, long curved claws, hooked teeth. The next morning, the body was gone. No blood, no fur, only an impression in the grass and a faint trail leading into the woods, a trail that ended in the center of an open field with no exit signs. I left that area with a sense of dread I can't explain. I've never gone back into that field. Neighborhood Bigfoot. North of Redding, California, while walking along a desolate road at night, I heard a loud, aggressive growl about 200-300 feet ahead. Then a loud clap from the opposite side of the road. I felt surrounded. An older woman eventually picked me up and drove me to the next exit. At a nearby bar, the bartender told me I had encountered the neighborhood Bigfoot. Years later, hearing other reports brought that memory back vividly. Whitehall incident. Driving from New Jersey to Killington, Vermont, I encountered 3 large figures crossing a rural road near Whitehall. I was 19, physically trained, experienced in hunting and tracking. I've encountered grizzlies, mountain lions, wolves. This was different. A large one crossed first, followed by 2 smaller figures. They moved rapidly up a steep wooded slope that would have been difficult even in daylight. I stopped 100 feet up the road, stunned. It wasn't fear exactly. It was confusion. I never heard classic howls or tree knocks. It resembled a road crossing, and I believe I surprised them. I've spent a lifetime evaluating evidence carefully. Whatever I saw that night did not fit into any known category of wildlife, and that uncertainty is what has stayed with me.
Welcome back to Bigfoot, Best Encounter Evidence, where we dive deep into the shadowy world of Sasquatch sightings that blur the line between myth and nightmare. Tonight, I've scoured Reddit for 8 of the creepiest, most spine-chilling first-person accounts from everyday folks who've crossed paths with the unknown. These stories come straight from the Bigfoot community and beyond, raw, unfiltered, and guaranteed to make you double-check the woods outside your window. Settle in, dim the lights, and remember, if you hear a knock at the door, it might not be a friend. Hit that like button if you're brave enough. Subscribe for more encounters that go bump in the night, and let's get into it. Story 1. The Beckoning Shadow, posted by u/anonymous user 42 in our Bigfoot, December 28, 2023. Hi, I'm Sarah from rural Washington, and this happened when I was just 12 years old back in the summer of 2005. We lived on the edge of a dense forest, the kind where the trees lean in like they're listening. One evening, my little brother and I were playing in the backyard after dinner. Our parents were inside arguing about bills as usual.
The sun had dipped low, painting everything orange, but the woods stayed dark like they swallowed the light. Suddenly we heard this low, rhythmic thumping like heavy footsteps circling our house. Not animal, too deliberate, too close. We froze, hearts pounding, and that's when the porch light flickered on. My brother grabbed my hand, whispering, "Sarah, look!" Peering through the kitchen window, we saw it, a massive silhouette at the tree line, at least 8 feet tall, broad as a bear but upright. Its arms hung low, fingers dangling like branches, and it was waving? No, beckoning. Slowly raising one arm, palm out, curling its fingers toward us in this eerie, patient gesture, like it was inviting us for a walk. The smell hit next. Rotting apples mixed with wet dog and something metallic, like blood. We bolted upstairs, barricading ourselves in my room with dressers and pillows. It knocked then. 3 sharp raps on the side of the house, echoing like gunshots. We didn't sleep until our parents got home hours later. They laughed it off as kids' imaginations, but Grandma, who grew up on those same woods, went pale when we told her. She whispered about the Watchers from her childhood stories, creatures that lure the curious. To this day, I can't eat apples without gagging, and every creak in my house makes me check the windows. Whatever it wanted, I hope it found someone else. Story 2. The Drunken Feast in the Orchard. Posted by u/Forest Wanderer 88 in our Bigfoot, July 15th, 2022. Hey folks, name's Mike, a 45-year-old orchard worker from Blaine County, Oklahoma. This goes back to July 1972. Yeah, I'm that old, but the memories burned in like acid. I was 12, helping my dad pick apples after a storm knocked half the crop down. The air was thick with humidity, and we'd hauled a bunch of the bruised ones into a clearing to sort. Dusk fell fast, and Dad sent me to fetch lanterns from the truck. That's when I heard the rustling, deep, guttural grunts like a man choking on laughter. I crept back, thinking it was poachers, but froze at the edge of the trees. There, in the moonlight, squatting amid our rotting pile, was this thing. 7 feet if it stood, covered in matted black fur streaked with mud. Its face, God, that face, was broad and flat, with eyes like wet coals glowing faintly. It was gorging itself, shoving handfuls of fermented apples into its mouth, juice dribbling down its chin in sticky rivers. The smell was vile, sour booze and decay, like a distillery exploded in a graveyard. It paused mid-bite, head snapping toward me, and let out this wet, belching chuckle that vibrated my bones. I swear it knew I was there, but it didn't charge, just tilted its head, grinning with yellowed teeth, like we were sharing a dirty joke. Then it stood, slow and wobbly from the drunk, and shuffled off into the brush, leaving apple cores scattered like offerings. Dad found the mess later and blamed raccoons. But I saw the prints, 18 inches long, knuckles dragging. For years, I'd dream of that laugh, waking up tasting cider. Now, every fall, I avoid orchards. Some feasts aren't meant for humans. Story 3. Tracks in the elk mud. Posted by u/IM_2legit in our Bigfoot, November 12th, 2024. What's up, Reddit? I'm Jake from Portland, Oregon, and my uncle's a hardcore elk hunter, boots caked in mud year-round. He just got back from a trip near Ukiah last fall, and over beers he spilled this tale from October 2024 that left him shaking. They were deep in the Cascades, camp set by a muddy creek after a rainy night. Uncle Ray woke at dawn to coffee bubbling, but something felt off, the air heavy, like eyes on his back. He stepped out for a smoke and spotted it. Fresh tracks weaving through their sight, massive 16-inch feet with a weird splayed toe, following what looked like deer prints but veering unnatural. "It was stalking us, Jake," he said, voice low. "Not hunting elk, circling camp, close enough to touch the tent." One print crushed a sapling flat, and in the soft earth he swore he saw claw marks, like it was testing the ground. No howls, no knocks, just silence, broken by a distant branch snap that echoed too long. They broke camp fast, but on the trail out, Ray's buddy swore he glimpsed a shadow loping parallel through the firs. Tall, hunched, keeping perfect pace. Photos of the tracks? Blurry as hell, but the depth? No human boot sinks that far. Uncle Ray hasn't hunted solo since, says the woods whisper now. Secrets meant to stay buried. Me? I believe him. Those prints weren't leaving. They were arriving. Story 4. Swamp Father and Son. Posted by UMLive Social in our Cryptozoology. May 22nd, 2025. Hello, I'm Tom, a lifelong resident of Monroe County, Michigan, and a skeptic no more after what happened to my dad and me last spring, April 2025 to be exact. We're fishermen, hitting the swamps at dawn when the mist clings like ghosts. That day the water was glassy, bullfrog silent, which should have been our first clue. We poled through the reeds, casting lines when Dad froze. "You hear that?" A low bubbling gurgle, like a submerged growl. Then, 20 yards out, the water erupted. A shape broke the surface, not a log, not an alligator. 8 feet of dripping fur, shoulders like boulders, head turning slow with eyes yellow as fever. It waded toward us, deliberate, water parting around thighs thicker than my waist. The stench hit like roadkill in July, sulfur and rot, choking. Dad dropped his pole, whispering, "Paddle, boy, now!" but I couldn't look away. It raised an arm, webbed fingers splayed like waving hello or warning. We gunned the motor, reeds whipping our faces, but it kept pace on the bank, crashing through brush we couldn't touch. A mile later, safe on shore, we collapsed, hearts hammering. Prints lined the mud, clawed, deep. Locals nodded when we told, "Swamp walkers," they call them. Guardians that don't forgive trespass. Dad sold the boat. Me? I fish lakes now, but every ripple reminds me, the swamp remembers you. Story 5. The Jabbering in the Fog. Posted by U. Gifford Hiker and R. Bigfoot, July 5th, 2023. Hey all, Alex here, a trail guide in Washington's Gifford Pinchot National Forest. This was June 2023, leading a group on an overnight hike. Touristy types, all chatty. Night 2, fog rolled in, thick as soup, muffling our fire crackle. Around midnight it started. Not howls, but chatter. Guttural jabbering, like samurai grunts mixed with wet gags echoing from 3 sides. "Bears!" one newbie whispered. I knew better, this park's lousy with stories. We huddled, flashlights slicing nothing but mist, when a branch snapped close. Too close. Then, silhouettes. 2, maybe 3, circling our perimeter, tall and shambling. Outlines fuzzy, but humanoid. One paused, and I swear its eyes caught our beam. Red pinpricks, unblinking. The jabber rose, frantic, like arguing over us. A rock sailed from the dark, clunking my pack. Panic hit. We bolted for the trail, screams bouncing back distorted. Dawn broke clear, camp trashed, tent slashed neat, not clawed. Prints everywhere, 15-inch strides, knuckles dimpled. No animals do that. I've guided 20 years, this was malice, not curiosity. Now I stick to marked paths, ears tuned for whispers. The forest talks back sometimes, and it doesn't like questions. Story 6. Military Stalkers of the Pines. Posted by U. King Tiger 4 and R. Bigfoot, December 18th, 2023. Sup, Marines? I'm ex-Corps, served in North Carolina's Pine Barrens, Fort Bragg Training Grounds, 2015. We were on a night op, platoon of 20 humping through swamps, NVG's green glowing ghosts. Humidity choked us, bugs feasting when our point man signaled halt. Contact, 12 o'clock. Not enemy, something paced us, parallel, crashing brush like a tank in low gear. Sentries reported shadows, 8-footers, bipeds, weaving trees we couldn't see in the murk. No chatter on radio, just static bursts. Then the knocks, sharp on trunks, Morse-like, closing in. One grunt flanked us, stench wafting, dead fish and musk. A boot print in the mud, 17 inches, toes splayed. LT ordered fire discipline, but panic rippled. Who shoots fog? It toyed with us for hours, herding like sheep until dawn scattered it. Debrief? Black bear fever dream? Bull. Vets from Nam whispered same. Wood apes, they called them, Vietnam's ghosts. I left the Corps twitchy, sleeping with doors bolted. War teaches you threats. This one hunts silent, eternal. Semper Fi? More like Semper Watched. Story 7. The Violent Rage of the Trapper. Posted by U/History Buff, 1890 in R. Bigfoot, February 8th, 2013. Evening. Theodore here, yes. Like the president, distant kin. But this ain't family lore. It's from his 1892 journals I found in an attic, a tale from Michigan trappers in the 1880s. 2 brothers, Jed and Eli, fur hunting the Huron River bottoms. First night, terror, howls circling camp, trees shaking like earthquakes. They fired blindly, scattershot shredding bark. Dawn, split to check traps, Eli first back, screaming. Jed's sight, shredded, tent in rags, gear pulped, blood spraying ferns. No body, just drags to the river. 20-foot swipes, prints like a gorilla's but longer strides. Eli bolted, half mad, babbling of the devil's cousin with eyes like coals, roaring rage that bent pines. Weeks later, searchers found Eli's gear downstream, same claw marks. Roosevelt called it grim and great, a beast capable of fury, not just shadow. I've hiked those woods. The air hums wrong. If it snaps, no mercy. Trap wisely, friends, or don't trap at all. Story 8. The Vibrating Brush in the Cascades, posted by U Oregon Trailblazer and R Bigfoot, February 4th, 2025. Yo Reddit, it's Lena from Bend, Oregon. Summer 2023, solo backpacking the Cascade Lakes Trail, 3 days in, loving the solitude. Night 3, tent zipped, I felt it first, ground quaking like distant thunder. Then closer, thudding footfalls, heavy bipedal, shaking pebbles into my tent. No smell, no whoops, just vibration building. Like a train rumbling near. I unzipped the tent a crack. Brush parting 50 yards off. A blur charging. Tall, furred blur. Legs pistoning unnatural. It veered at the last tree, vanishing like smoke. But the quakes lingered, circling my sight. Heart slamming, I lay rigid till sunrise, every rustle a claw. Morning, snapped saplings, prints 14 inches deep, toes curled like it gripped earth for speed. No road nearby, no campgrounds, just wild. Felt pursued, tested. Now I hike armed, voice recorder rolling. The Cascades hold grudges, mine's still out there, waiting for quiet. Woo, there you have it. 8 bone-chilling Reddit tales that remind us the wild isn't done with us yet. From beckoning shadows to swamp stalkers, these encounters prove Bigfoot's more than folklore. It's a whisper in the dark. What about you? Drop your story in the comments. Have you felt those eyes? Smash like if these kept you up, subscribe and ring the bell for weekly dives into the unknown. Stay safe out there. And remember, the woods are always watching.
Mark Strittmatter vanished without a trace in Medicine Bow National Forest. A year later, on October 23, 2020, a tourist exploring the area where Mark had disappeared stumbled upon his binoculars and a loaded shotgun. Nearby, an unfired bullet was discovered in the Tang Pavilion. Another year passed before a hunter named Chris and his nephew came to the Crow Mountains near the park's border for a hunting trip. During their outing, they accidentally discovered Mark's backpack. Following this lead, search and rescue teams found a folding knife about 300 feet from the scene, along with various items like hats and gear. A human mandible was also recovered. Forensic analysis confirmed that it belonged to Mark Strittmatter, the hunter who had vanished 3 years earlier. Evidence indicated that he had suffered a severe blow before death. Strangely, his remains appeared to have been transported dozens of kilometers away to Mount Luke. On the morning of October 19, 2019, Mark was last seen driving his white pickup truck into Medicine Bow National Forest. Surveillance footage from a convenience store captured him wearing a light camouflage shirt, gray trousers, a large hat, and an orange wool cover. October is a popular time for hunting and for people to go missing, but Mark hadn't planned to get lost. He had a specific goal: to hunt a Sasquatch. Medicine Bow National Forest spans over 2 million acres across Wyoming and Colorado. Its climate is unpredictable, with significant temperature shifts between morning and evening. The park's tallest mountains rise above 12,000 feet. The forest is not only rich in wildlife, but steeped in folklore, particularly the enduring tales of Sasquatch. Sightings of the creature have been reported consistently since the 1970s. Many park rangers have heard stories, and some even claimed first-hand encounters. Mark planned to hunt in an area known as Changangi Campground, deep within the park. He was well-equipped, carrying a high-caliber rifle, folding knife, binoculars, and a backpack filled with survival gear. It was clear he had prepared thoroughly. Mark lived with his girlfriend of 13 years, Kelly, who often accompanied him on hunts. Around 11 a.m. that day, he tried calling her, but received no answer. He then texted her, claiming he had nearly killed a Bigfoot. Kelly struggled to understand Mark's increasingly paranoid and eccentric behavior. She believed Bigfoot was a myth. That day, a blizzard had been forecast. Concerned for his safety, Kelly called him back and urged him to stop hunting. There was a long silence on the line. Then Mark hung up. She tried calling again, but he never answered. On October 20th, Kelly returned home and realized Mark hadn't come back. Alarmed, she went to the police station to check if there had been any reports. She was the first to report him missing. Local police began investigating. Instead of going home, Kelly drove alone to Changangi Campground, where she found Mark's white pickup parked at the junction of Forest Highways 801 and 803. The truck was already covered in thick snow. Inside, she found his cell phone, wallet, cigarettes, and other personal items. The keys were in the vehicle's mailbox, a habit Mark was known for. The only items missing were his shotgun and backpack. She tried starting the truck. It was in working condition with no sign of damage. The presence of his cell phone inside the truck suggested he had briefly returned before heading back into the forest. Following Mark's disappearance, search and rescue operations were quickly launched, but heavy snow severely hindered progress. Despite multiple teams, no results emerged. A year later, on October 23, 2020, a mountain climber discovered a pair of binoculars and a shotgun about 600 meters from Mark's vehicle. The shotgun was loaded, and an unfired bullet lay nearby. Authorities confirmed the weapon had been fired at least once. Kelly confirmed these items belonged to Mark. Based on this discovery, police assumed Mark had died. A team of 12 civilian volunteers searched the area but found nothing more. Another year passed before a major breakthrough came. On October 16, 2022, police received a call from a hunter reporting the discovery of human remains in Rock Mountain, nearly 17 miles from where Mark's vehicle had been found. Chris and his nephew had been hunting when they spotted a backpack containing clothing and boots. Inside was Mark's hunting license. Police found more belongings nearby: a human mandible, broken ribs, and personal items including receipts and a folding knife, all within a 300-foot radius. His clothes were located as well, but had been torn apart. Forensic tests confirmed the bones belonged to Mark. His remains showed signs of significant trauma, though the exact cause of death couldn't be determined. There was no conclusive evidence of foul play, but the possibility of a wild animal attack could not be ruled out. Yet no known predator matched the injuries or circumstances. Kelly was again contacted by investigators. She told them Mark had once texted her claiming he'd nearly captured a Bigfoot. She hadn't taken it seriously. She recalled asking him why he'd go hunting in a snowstorm. Mark told her Bigfoot avoided humans in normal weather, but dropped its guard during snowfall, making it the best time to track the creature. He believed Kelly had been stalked and harassed by Bigfoot and claimed that during a previous hunt, a massive beast had followed him down a mountain, even throwing stones. Mark had managed to record part of the encounter on his phone. Despite being armed, he was deeply shaken. He believed he had been attacked, or nearly attacked, by a juvenile Sasquatch. Hunting it became an obsession, driven by both fear and a desire for revenge. Police were unable to draw conclusions from her statements. Ultimately, Mark's death was classified as unexplained, possibly supernatural. Even years later, his case remains unsolved and controversial. The most accepted theory is that Mark may have overdosed. His father, Mike, doubted this, stating his son had previously worked as a forest guide and knew the terrain well. But Mike acknowledged Mark's history with drug use. At the time, he was under medical care and on prescription medication. Police found drugs used to suppress withdrawal symptoms in his backpack. Two other hunters, Jacob and Cameron, added more mystery. On the day of the blizzard, they saw Mark hiking up the mountain and warned him it was too dangerous. An argument broke out. Jacob later reported that Mark seemed agitated and excited, as if provoked by something unseen. Another theory suggests Mark was abducted by a UFO. The idea gained traction because of its similarities to a 1970s case in which a man named Carl Hickton claimed he was abducted at a campsite and transported to a distant forest. Mark's body was found 17 miles, about 27 kilometers, from his truck. To walk that distance, in snow and at elevations of over 10,000 feet, would take over 6 hours, making it unlikely without rest or supplies. A third theory is that Mark fell victim to a legendary creature, possibly Bigfoot. His shotgun's condition indicated he may have been defending himself, yet one bullet remained unfired. His binoculars and shotgun were found far from his backpack, raising suspicions that his body had been moved. No known North American animal could have transported a human body that far uphill. During search operations, teams found something odd: massive footprints leading deeper into the mountains. These prints were larger than any known animal tracks in the region. Though no direct connection to Mark was confirmed, the discovery deepened the mystery. Some believe the footprints may belong to the very creature Mark was hunting. In the aftermath, famed investigator David Paulides, known for the Missing 411 series, became involved. He interviewed Kelly and others close to the case. Intrigued by its strange circumstances, Paulides included it in his research. The case gained wider attention and debate among enthusiasts of the unexplained. Years later, Mark's disappearance remains unsolved, a chilling enigma. The unfired bullet found near his last known location stands as a symbol of everything unresolved. He never got the chance to pull the trigger or finish his hunt, and Kelly, still haunted by what happened, holds on to the faint hope that some answer will one day come.